Are you ready to organize your amazing ideas into a powerful book? You are in the right place at the right time to learn how to write your book. Hi, I'm Joyce Class, and welcome to the Write Hour, nonfiction tips from the Write Coach team. We are so glad you joined us today. We're back. Had a little tech issue there myself. I chose the wrong video at first. So you got a thank you and a welcome. So we're glad if you're here and you're showing up. We would love to know where you're listening at. I've got the beautiful Christine Gritmon with us today, and she's going to bring us some wonderful tips on personal branding. So if you have some questions, feel free to put it in the comments and let us know what you have, and like we'd love to know where you're listening or watching this at today, if you're in the States or across the world, because we've got people all over the place that I'm connected with. So I love this. Well, thank you, Christine, for being here.
Thanks for having me. And to your point about being very international, we met through an Australian. We met through Keith and his live stream. So that's one thing I love about the internet. It can be anybody from anywhere.
Yes, that's true. And I forgot that's true, that we had our international friend introduce us. So, and he's a good one at that. Well, tell us a little bit about you personally, and then some of your journey becoming a personal branding coach. And I know you also help with social media strategy. So tell us, how did that happen?
Sure. So this is actually my fourth career, and even this has had some twists and turns as part of the journey. So I'll kind of yada past the first bits. I started out working not as a marketer, but in marketing support functions within the corporate beauty industry in Manhattan for about 10 years. And that was really great, but that was before social media was a thing. And then when I had my first child, I moved to being a creative freelancer. So I was a graphic designer, and I did funny photoshops for a comedy website, which was fun. And I also became a writer. I was a freelance writer for local lifestyle publications. And so it was very cool. And so that was career number 2. Career number 3, after I had my daughter, I actually considered different, even though it grew out of career number 2. One of my best clients was our local newspaper, and they hired me in full-time in the newsroom. But that was so different. It was so different from writing a little freelance article here and there. I learned more about writing, more about communication, just so much in that time period. And that's also where I learned about the power of social media for packaging things up. And I also learned a lot about personal branding, because that was something they were just starting to really encourage in the newsroom. Social media was a great vehicle for that. And I just took to it, because I didn't have that training of you keep yourself out of the story. I didn't come from that. So it came naturally to me, and I got promoted into a position of helping others do that. And so then that was career number 3. After a little while, not only was my personal brand sufficiently strong on its own, but I also realized that I loved social media. I loved helping people with it. People were starting to ask me to come speak about social media in places in the private sector. And I had all these connections in the local business community. So finally, in May of 2016, I decided to go for it, and I started Christine Gritmon Inc. And again, I know it's been a long story already, but it has evolved in terms of what Christine Gritmon Inc. does.
It has. Well, that's interesting, because in February 2016 is when I started the Write Coach. So
nice. Something in the air.
Yes, there was a lot in the air in 2016 for us. My son graduated high school, and we moved, and I started a new business. So all kinds of fun things happened that year.
I feel like it's nice to get a lot of upheaval over with at once, rather than thing. Instead, it's like, let's just get everything going.
Well, and it seems to happen that with my son. The year he was born, like everything happened. My husband had changed jobs. I had a job. We decided to stay home. We had to move, bought a house, sold a house, had a baby, all in the same year.
Yeah.
It was
a lot going on.
Fun, crazy years. It was a lot. But We all survived. So wonderful. So how did you get into the personal branding and coaching? I'm assuming it's evolved from your own.
Yeah. So when I started my business, am I looking at the right camera, by the way? I think so. When I started my business, I was going to be just doing social media for small local businesses with a focus on restaurants. And so that's how I launched my business. And then I got what I wanted, and I realized that it was just so not scalable because I was doing a lot of very hands-on work in a way that I could only accommodate a few clients at a time. But the price points that I was charging, because of the size of business I was working with, wouldn't accommodate like just a few clients. So I figured out, I started teaching small business owners how to do their own social media better. And by better, I mean not only more strategically and effectively, but also in a way that these were a lot of people who were hesitant about social media. And I showed them ways they wouldn't hate so that they'd actually do them. And I just took a lot of the fear out from it. And so that has been part of what I've been doing. That's been the bulk of what I've been doing for a few years, but people started telling me more and more how much they really noticed and admired my personal brand. They said that I was just so well branded all the time. And that was also something that I really enjoyed the most when helping clients, helping them tease out what was special about them. Because a lot of times, you know, they weren't really in that mindset. And I helped them tease it out. And I helped ask the kind of leading questions to pull it out of them, the things that they really needed to be putting forward. And so just last year, I decided, you know what, I'm going to make a bigger push into this personal branding arena. I'm going to be personal branding girl. I launched a Twitter chat about brand on Tuesdays. I had already had a long-standing live stream show, Social, but I ended that and launched a new show called Let's Talk About Brand, where every single interview is about personal branding from different angles. And it's really stuck. Like once I decided that that was my thing, not only have I been asked to speak in more places and I've had so many opportunities to talk about it, but my chat community is growing and it enables me, this is really key, it has enabled me to offer services to a different category of professional. Because there's a lot of people out there who are like, well, I don't really need help with my social media marketing. But personal branding and like establishing thought leadership and becoming known in a particular arena, that appeals to a lot of professionals, including fellow marketers. I had this catch-22 of like the people who I was working with weren't really seeing my social media stuff as much because they weren't really on it, but I was killing it with the audience of my peers who weren't about to hire me. Now I can help my peers too. I can help all sorts of people because who couldn't use a stronger personal brand to help them be known, be remembered, be thought of, mind.
Exactly. I keep seeing my microphone thing in here, so I'm trying to move it. The little arm to this thing on it. But anyways, well, I love that, and I love your story. I love that you have some writing in your history too. That has really helped you. And as you know, the Write Hour is about helping writers. And this season is about connections and making connections. And if you aren't connecting with people, you're not going to find new readers. So that's why you really need to work on that. And so first of all, for those that maybe don't understand, what do you mean personal brand? You know, because I'm sure everybody thinks brand, you know, they think Coke, Pepsi, IBM.
Or they think like Instagram influencers when they think personal brand, and they don't think it's something that relates to them. So personal brand is really just the version of you that lives in someone's head in a way. It's making sure that you are remembered by the right people for the right reasons. And you don't control that 100%, but you have a lot more control of it than you may think. Right.
And that's important. And this is something that I'm trying to stress to all the authors and writers that I work with. It's like, this is something you need to be doing while you're writing your book.
You can't do it after because it's a build.
Yes, that you've got to build this momentum. And you want people, when you're done with your book, you want them going, I can't wait. I mean, I'm sure all of us, if you're a reader, there's probably been a book you're like, oh, if she doesn't get that next novel out, I'm going to die. I need to know what happens. You know, there was a series that I was reading that I absolutely loved. And when I first started, I didn't realize it was a series. And there was 2. And I got done with the second and was like, the next one's not going to be done till March. And this was like May of the previous year. I'm like, I've got to wait till March to find out what happens. You know? And so, and even with nonfiction books, you can build up this momentum and energy. And that's something I want you to help people understand that. Hey, Joey, we got Joey and Sylvia and Shannon are listening in the Write My Book group. I've got 2 devices going here. One's the Write Coach Facebook page and one's the group, because we're in the group and on YouTube and on the Facebook page. So welcome everybody again, for those who maybe missed the welcome. And we've got the beautiful Christine Gritmon here talking about personal branding. So what do authors need to create a personal brand? I'm sure it's not that much different than everybody else, but there are some things that are a little different.
Well, first of all, to your point, it creates anticipation. It gets you sort of this built-in fan club, this built-in community of people who are ready to receive what you are offering. So that is really key. You can't just, you can just put a book out or put a piece of writing out and hope that it finds its people, but it's far more effective to do the build first, and then keep building. But it's great when you have a ready and waiting audience who can't wait to receive your work. So there's that. But also the fact is, a personal brand gives people a sense of your vibe and what they can kind of expect from you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if your first novel is about one thing and then your second novel is a completely different type of subject matter or even different genre or whatever, it doesn't mean that you can't still leverage your personal brand to bridge both audiences, because ultimately your personal brand isn't about the work. It is about you. And yes, ideally, people should be aware of your work. You should certainly talk about your work as part of your personal brand, because part of what you want in people's heads is that you are an author. But by making sure that you're not just promoting a given piece of work, but by making sure that you are promoting yourself and your own brilliant mind and your own personality, that can really make sure that you can carry that through to bring attention to and to shine a light on any future work you may have, and that community that you have accumulated will be along for the ride.
Exactly, because I keep thinking there's a couple of people, like Brenda Burchard is somebody I follow, and if he says, I have a book coming out, I'm like, what is it? I want to know.
Give me that.
And that's the kind of fan you want to create with nonfiction books or novels. Either one. But what I'm getting at is you can do it with nonfiction. A lot of people that I work with are nonfiction, but there are some, especially in the group, there's a mix of both. And I do both. I'm working on a novel and I write nonfiction. So you need that. What you said is you got to work on you and your brand. And so what are a couple of things that are the main components of creating a personal brand, or something that they can do to start now?
Well, one really big thing is you have to figure out who needs to know about you. So who do you really want to make sure knows who you are? And the answer cannot be everybody.
No.
You can have a few. You can have a few really specific ones, which is better than one big broad one. But have a real idea in your head of who really needs to know who you are and why, and what's in it for them to know who you are, because that's the stuff that's going to sink in. When you show up and you have something that resonates with someone or that connects with something that they're interested in, that is what is going to make you stick in their head. But then you also need to have a clear sense inside of who you are. What are your values? What are your do's and don'ts? And what are you passionate about? Why do you even do what you do? Where does that come from? Having a real sense of that is going to make sure it's going to give you a lot of leverage to do a lot of different things, because as long as you're really clear and loud about those core elements of yourself, it's all going to feel like you. So making sure that you're clear on who you are. There's even a concept that I'm going to be presenting about soon at a conference about kind of these content pillars a lot of people talk about, which is really for social media. It kind of helps narrow down, because if you have this set handful of things that are very you, some of them can be personal. They can have nothing to do with what you do for a living. And some of them, of course, should relate to what you do for a living, because that shouldn't be a mystery. But having those kind of few things where it's like, these are my things.
Right.
That means that those things are now things that people will see out there in the world that you didn't create, that make them think of you. When people see red stuff, they send it to me all the time because I've made red such
I don't know why. Why would they send you red stuff, Christine? I just don't get it.
But I mean, things like that, you know, just things that, you know, you can sort of establish as yours. You don't have to create them. Obviously, Coca-Cola is red, Virgin is red, Target is red, but red's mine too. And so it gets, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be visual though. It doesn't have to be a color. It doesn't have to be a logo. It can be something you're into. It can be something that you think about and that you talk about a lot. It can be something that matters a lot to you. And it can be something that you write about. If you do focus on a given subject matter, you know, you may want to talk about that in a broader sense than just within your own work. You may want to establish thought leadership in that arena, perhaps.
Yes.
The ways in which you can latch onto something and sort of own it as part of your personal brand are so numerous, because all people, you know, we contain multitudes, right? We all contain all sorts of different personality traits, things we care about. So it's a matter of figuring out what you want to make sure reminds people of you, what you want to make sure people associate with you, those puzzle pieces that form the picture of you that lives in people's heads. If you don't put out anything, if you don't put anything out there, and if you don't define what those things are, one of two things will happen. Either you won't have a picture of you in someone else's head, like they just won't remember you, or they get to define who you are. They get to define what you stand for. They get to define what's special about you.
And if you don't, they will. That's right. That is so right.
Or they won't, which is worse.
Yes. Well, and that's something, I love this. They have to get to know you, trust you, and respect to buy from you. And I love that. I'm not sure who posted that. Sylvia. I can see over here because it doesn't show on this one. Then Joey let's back up just a little second here. Joey had a good question here. How do you begin building after the horse is out of the barn? Laugh out loud. How do you begin your brand after the book is done?
If you haven't,
she's put the book out.
So I would say if you haven't done the preliminary work, you just have to do it extra loud, you know, when you have the book, and that's fine. But I would still say don't fall into the trap of making it solely about the book. It should be, here's the book, here's why it's great, yay, book, rah, rah, rah. So maybe it does have to be a little more book-centric in the front end, but always make sure you connect it back to, here's this book from this person. And make sure that you get them interested in following you as well, because a book is one thing. And you want them to follow you for you know, any future books you may write, or any appearances you may make, or any opportunities you may receive. You want to make sure that all of it is able to compound.
And I love that, because Joey, I'm sure there are a lot of topics in your book. One of the things I've done with one of my books is I have 3 talks that I've created from it. And it was a devotional, and one of my favorite ones is called The Dirty S Word. And it's in the Christian arena, that's submission, you know, especially for women. You know? So that's the dirty S word. It brings some power to it, you know. And so there's a lot of content that you can pull out of there to share with people, and then you can say, hey, this came from my book, you know, and where you're giving value about something. Buy my book. It's, hey, here's this, I can help you with this, and here's the topic, and talk about it and share about it, share quotes about it. I mean, you could do, I did quotes all the time from my book and have stories. But I don't know, I can't remember, Joey, everything that your book's about, but if it's your story or somebody else's story, share a little bit about the story behind it, maybe. Like, why did this happen? Or what did they do before whatever you is that talked about? And then you tell them, you know, hey, this is how they overcame this. This is what happened. People love to hear about people. I mean, why are biographies and documentaries so interesting? Is because you want to know what happened behind the scenes or before then, or how to get to that point. Like I remember we were talking Keith one time, or if it was another one interview, but like I didn't know about Dwayne The Rock. I think it was just maybe that long ago, like 6-7 years ago, he was living in somebody's garage and was broke, you know.
Wow.
And it was so hard to believe. I'm like, what? You know, and, and he obviously got over that problem pretty quickly.
There was one of those 10-year challenge things going around on social media where it, you know, show a picture of yourself 10 years ago and a picture of yourself now, talk about your life. And of course, and this was a year or two ago, of course, the singer Lizzo had just blown up. Like she had just, because like her star rose very fast, you know, from an outside view, but she'd been toiling away for a very long time. So her 10-year flashback, she was first of all, she's a very large woman. She was skinny, unhealthy skinny. And she was like, this is from when I was living in my car, dirt broke. My dad had just died, like all these horrible things. And it's just fascinating to be like, this was Lizzo 10 years ago. But of course, she was already hustling in the recording studio. Yeah. She was already doing all she could to get her 10 years later story. But it was just fascinating to look at this person who was just having the best year of her life and be like, wow, okay, that's changed.
I love that. Yeah, I love that because it's also the writing journey is the same kind of ways like an actor or anything else. Yeah. It takes time, and some people can shoot out of the gate and they do awesome and they keep going, and some people they write and they write and they write and they write and they write. I mean, even Stephen King, what was it, 30 something rejections before he finally got a break, and I think Carrie was his first book. I don't like Stephen King, but I like his story. I like his writing because it's too creepy for me. But I love his story, and I read the on writing, and you hear that with a lot of writers. So don't give up. If you are consistent with your brand, consistent with your writing, consistently showing up and giving value to the world, it's eventually going to bring you somewhere, you know.
And give people a chance to root for you if they get to see bits of that story. So let's say you are someone who is starting, who's just kind of starting your personal brand now after you've launched your book or around the launch of your book. That's fine. But here's the thing. Don't forget that once people start talking about, oh my God, I love this book. First of all, you have other people talking about you. It's not just you talking about you, which is the most valuable thing of all. So you want to make sure you promote that and show love back. But also you want to give them a little taste of, even just like an Instagram picture of your laptop or typewriter, whatever, and be like, starting to plot out my next novel. People love that. People want to know everything. You can even do like little tiny, not giving much away details. You can put like a poll up about like, which name do you prefer? Paula,
should they die? Should they not die? Should they?
No, it doesn't have to be major. You don't have to. You can put completely inconsequential things in there, like little tiny details, like what colored jacket. Like just you don't have to let people dictate things, but then they feel like they've invested in it, and they're going to buy that book because they want to see if the jacket is, brown or black.
To the book. And I have actually heard that there's a writing group that I'm in. And she did something like that, and I think she there was some award for the person that won, and their character name got to be in there in the book. And so I thought, well, what a fun thing to do. And it is, you can make the journey fun, make it fun for you, make it fun for your readers. And then again, that's that personal branding. Not like part of Christine, when you talked about comedy, a part of Christine's branding, I can tell, is humor. I see it all
Yes,
over.
I do have a sense of humor.
Yes, there's lots of humor in all of her stuff. Like I've seen some of your YouTube videos and just other stuff, as I was working on the show notes for you. And I was like, I love it. I love the humor. And you've got a lot of personality. Just look at your pictures. I mean, all the places and stuff that you're doing and, fun. You can tell you're enjoying yourself. It's not like, I'm over here and I've got to take this picture.
It's not too much of a chore. It is true.
Yes. Which I'm like having pictures taken too, and it's time for some more. So I need to do that soon. It's funny that you brought that up. But I love that you brought that personality and that's what people need to do.
Yeah. And another thing to point out is that a lot of people sort of feel the need to hide elements of their personality, especially the more colorful elements of their personality. There are things that people feel the need to hide in order to fit in order to blend in order to be considered professional and kind of inoffensive. I'm not saying go be offensive, but I am saying a lot of times the things you felt the need to hide in like middle school, that's the stuff you should rock out now. You should own. Again, you don't have to be weird, but you should own the things that are, but if you are, hey, rock it out. Own the things that you would feel the need to hide or tamp down if you were just trying to fit in, because you are not trying to fit in. Oh no, did it freeze?
Right. And I don't know, do you know Claudia? It did for a second, but you're back.
Okay.
Do you know Claudia Varbanova?
No.
Do you know her?
No.
She does 20K Nation. I'm in her group. She's from Bulgaria. And when I first met her, she was on Periscope and had she'd wear these really quirky hats. That was like her thing, was these, and she's got a quirky personality and it fit her. And I've watched her branding evolve as she has matured and older. Because I think when she first started, she was mid-20s and now she's like early 30s. And so she may even not be 30 yet. I don't know. But I think she is. But I love that she was authentically her. There was no, I've got to be person like, she wasn't trying to be Brenda Burchard. And the same thing for me. If I tried to be Claudia, that would look stupid. I would look like an idiot because it's not me. I'm not that kind of quirky personality.
And that creates a whole job for yourself. I mean, you've got enough, your sole job, I mean, your primary job should be being as good as you can be at what you do, being the best you can be. And if you add on this whole extra thing of playing a part, playing a character, playing a role that's not real, that you think is going to help you marketing wise, that's going to take energy away from being the best that you can be. So while personal branding is important to get out there and to do those things that'll put you out there and to market yourself in that way, it's so much easier and more effective. You get both ease and efficacy by just taking what you are, taking who you are, taking the actual you, and subtracting any energy that you would have exerted towards hiding it.
Right.
Really what you do.
Right. So what we're saying is, if you are a little quirky or a little funny, or you embellish it in a good way.
Yeah.
And that enhance that part, I guess would be the right word instead of embellish. Enhance that part.
Own
that's what you
enjoy it.
Own it. Be I love it. I love people who own their little bit as a difference, that they're doing. Like one lady that she's in the 20K Nation group, and I know she would have no problem saying her name, Beth Griffin. She recently found out she is autistic. And she is loud and proud about it. And
that connects you to a whole incredible community too. That's the other thing. Things that are, nothing is truly unique about you, no matter what it is. So the fact is, the things that are unique about you are things that other people feel is kind of their thing too. And there's whole communities out there of people connecting over commonalities that aren't that common.
Yeah.
So
And I
that
think
opens up a whole
I'm trying to
world.
remember her group name is the Magnetic Entrepreneurs or something like that. So when you're talking about connecting with people, I thought about the magnetic thing.
I love
So
that.
it's perfect. So the main components we were talking about was being you. Was there something else we've talked about yet that I forgot?
Talked about a bunch, but being yourself, taking control of that version of you in people's heads. And in order to do that, you do have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the other thing. You can't like hide and hope that you're gonna then earn real estate in somebody's brain, because you're not. So you have to make sure you give people something to know you by, give people something to react to, give people something to resonate with. Keep putting those pieces of the puzzle out there so that people can assemble them in their heads. Because they say it takes, they've done studies.
8, 10, 20
Yeah,
times.
a whole bunch of brand touches. And it's more than ever nowadays because we get touched so constantly by so many messages, by so many brands, by so many people. There's just overload. So it takes a lot more impressions. And if you are not memorable or if you're not consistent, there's brand touch here. But if then there's another brand touch and they don't remember that you're the same person, that's not 1 + 1 is 2 brand touches. That's 1 and 1.
And that's 1. Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they can compound.
Right. So again, that back to the consistency thing that we talked about. So being you, being consistent, being out there, and when we're talking about being consistent, I know for me, consistently showing up on social media, consistently, like I've been doing this podcast for 3 years now. And it's every I do a season for 6 weeks and then I take 2 or 3 weeks off and then I do another 6 weeks. I have consistently been doing that. That's the kind of thing we're talking about, whether it's blog posts, Facebook Lives, showing up on Facebook, whatever. I mean, you need your own real estate too, I feel like.
Yeah.
But like a website, something like that. But you also need to be consistently showing up on social media as well. And that's what I mean by
where they can find you. People need to know where they can find you. And also when people want to talk about you to others, they need to know where to tell people to go.
Right. Yeah, go to this website. And if you don't have one, oops, you better get one.
Go join Joyce's group. You got to follow Joyce. Go join her group. It's great. And, you know, people know that. People know that that's your thing because you've been consistent about it. And so they know if it's someone who they should refer, that's where they should go. And then if someone shows up there, they get to see this whole backlog of information of the stuff you've been consistently doing. So instead of showing up and being like, oh, they can show up and binge for hours on all this backlog of material that really reinforces who you are and why they should care.
Exactly. And that's what you want to do as a writer. You want people to know who you are, what you're about. And even if it's just a 5-minute live talking about your topic is better than nothing. You know, that you show up consistently. Now, and Sylvia's doing this really well. Sylvia's on the call here with us. She does Sylvia, what's your Fridays? It's something Friday. Faithful Friday?
At least you know it's Friday.
It's Friday. Yes. Having a brain freeze, if you can help me, Sylvia, with what it is. But then, so tell us the steps that they can take right now to start creating their personal brand. What are those first steps that, like Joey's saying, hey, I already let the horse out of the barn, but I need to get working on this. What can she do?
I would say figure out why people should care first and foremost. Why should people care? Who should care? What should they care about? Like, why are you trying to get a share of their attention? Everyone wants their attention. Why you? And then I would say, people ask me all the time where they should be on social media and on the internet. Where should I be? And they expect me to tell them one of two things. They expect me to say either, oh, well, this platform, or they expect me to say where your audience is. And yeah, where your audience is a very good, very smart answer. But I actually give a slightly different one. I say you should be where you won't hate being. Because if you don't hate doing it, you'll do it. You'll show up. You'll get consistent with it. If I tell you, you need to be on Instagram, but you hate Instagram, you're not a visual person, you certainly don't want to put your own face out there, you don't really take pictures of stuff, I'm not going to tell you that Instagram is the most important platform for you, except, there are exceptions. If you're a restaurant, I'm sorry, you need to be on Instagram. But generally speaking,
you got to figure out something, right?
yeah, but I know, so I love Twitter. I'm on Twitter all the time. I have almost no clients who are on Twitter because a lot of my clients don't really get Twitter and they're not that interested in Twitter. And honestly, if there aren't that many conversations going on Twitter that they really need to be a presence in, I'm not going to force them to be on Twitter. I'm going to say, you know what? Focus your energies on making your Instagram as good as it can be. I'm going to say the most important thing to do is something that you will do. So again, if you're just starting out your branding journey in terms of how to put yourself out there, I personally think live video is the best bang for your buck in terms of the type of attention, the type of resonance with other people, the fact that you do it and it's done and you can repurpose it into things if you want to. You can just show up and it's happening. So I like it because I'm lazy. If you are terrified of the concept of live video, my goodness, write something then. I'm not going to tell you that there's anything you have to do. Figure out what you won't hate doing. And yes, do try to expand your comfort zone. Do try things you're maybe not comfortable with yet. But I'm going to tell you the thing that you don't hate doing is the thing that you'll do the best at.
Yes, I agree. And I have found, you were talking about Instagram. I have found I enjoy Instagram. I've made a Joyce Class Writer account and I have a Write Coach account. I enjoy the writer account more because it's easier for me. I can be me and I'm not trying to be businessy, and there's all, I had somebody helping me with my account for a little while, and, she's like, well, they're shadow banning, which I hate that word. I'm like, that word just drives me nuts. I'm like,
yes,
just be nice and don't worry about it. Just put my stuff out there and leave me alone. I'm not hurting anybody. All I'm doing is sharing some good value. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. But obviously the algorithms don't see it that way.
Yeah.
But doing my personal writing out there, I enjoy much more. Now, I enjoy LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter more for my business. Those seem to be my go-to places that I'm much more comfortable at for my business. And of course, and here's the other caveat that I want everybody to know too. You don't have to do all of these at once.
No,
start with one.
Really don't.
We don't want you to do them all at once.
I don't even do everything. People tell me all the time. They say, oh my God, you have so much personality. You would kill it on TikTok. I'm like, I don't want to kill it on TikTok though. I'm busy trying to kill it on Twitter. I'm busy trying to kill it on live video. I'm trying to pull those two together. I don't care about TikTok. It is a fantastic platform. I absolutely tell people to give it a look. It's not what they think it is. It's not just kids lip syncing to songs. But the fact remains, I'm not doing all the things. I had a podcast for a little while. It wasn't I wasn't consistent enough about promoting it. So guess what? I don't have a podcast right now. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a TikTok. I mean, I have a TikTok, but not really. You don't have to do all the things. Things like, it's better to be really good at something than to half-ass a million things.
Exactly. So get one, get comfortable at it, add another one. And that's what I did. And once I was with you with Twitter, but Keith is the one that helped me figure out how to really work Twitter and how to understand how it works. And that's the thing. Once you understand how it works, it's so much easier, and it does make it more fun.
It took me years. That way, Twitter was my least favorite for the longest time. I was like, I don't really get Twitter, and I resented this. So I hated the fact that my Twitter following was larger than my Instagram following or my Facebook page following, because I was like, but I don't want Twitter to be the biggest. I'm doing the least interesting stuff there. My clients aren't there. I wanted Facebook to be number one, and it was number 3. Meanwhile, Instagram, I was like, but my Instagram's so fun. Why is it like less? Why do I have fewer followers than I do on Twitter? And I just resented it. And then last year at some point, my brain just flipped and I said, how about instead of bemoaning, oh, this thing is working and it's not what I wanted to be working, how about you look into why it's working and you look into how you can get better at it and just rock it out instead of like being annoyed that this other thing isn't working. Because you know what? This other thing isn't working. This thing is. Focus on this thing. Yes. And once I realized that and owned that, my community is growing on Twitter daily to like amazing degrees. I don't have a crazy amazing Twitter following, but I care about the steady growth. I don't care about having 1 million followers. I'm not even at the 10,000 mark yet. I care that it's growing steadily. I care that people are getting way more engaged. Like the people who are following me are real people who actually want to engage and are relevant to me and what I do. People who are following me are not bots. They're not numbers. They're enhancing my life and I'm enhancing theirs. So I've been so happy. If I get 10 Twitter followers who are going to be conversing with me regularly and who I'm interested in too, that's worth, 1,000 nonsense followers anywhere.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that point. Yeah. There's something called bots, and you can buy followers from places still, I'm assuming. You can.
Never do that ever.
Yes, exactly. Because that doesn't help you. I mean, other than you got these pretty numbers, it doesn't help you grow your business, your writing, your followers, your fans, because those people really don't care about you. They're just they were somehow bought to be on there, and how many of them are really real is a good question too. Are they?
And how many of them are actually going to buy from you? How many of them are actually going to buy from you? Right. How many of them are actually going to spread the word about you? You have to realize why you're on social media, and the reason you're on social media should never be vanity metrics. It should never be I'm on Twitter so I can get 100,000 Twitter followers. No. You have to be on there for a deeper reason and not lose sight of it. It's easy to lose sight of it. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers because social media is hard to measure otherwise. But you know what? Measure it in how you feel. Measure it in, leading to actual business if you got to measure something. Measure it in opportunities. Measure it in, general raising of your profile, which isn't connected to numbers. I know people with a lot of followers because they had like one tweet go viral 1 million years ago. And so they got all these followers. They're not continuing to show up and provide value. I'm not respecting that person. I mean, I respect all human beings, but you know what I mean? I'm not going to look at that person and be like, oh, wow, they're killing it just because they have a lot of followers. People could have a lot of followers for 1 million reasons.
Right. Right. That's not good.
Focus on being good.
Well, Joey's got a great question here. Yes, there are so many platforms. I cannot figure out which is best for me. How do you assess which is best for you? What would you tell her?
A couple things. First of all, as I said before, think about the way that you would like to show up on social media and look at the platform where that is the way that people show up. So if you enjoy showing up in writing, which makes sense, Twitter is probably a good place because it is predominantly written word. If you really like communicating with something visual, then Instagram might be good. But look first and foremost at a way that you're comfortable creating content, a way that you're comfortable communicating, and look at where that happens. But another thing that I would say is, much like my own story from before, see what's working. See where conversations are already happening around certain topics and, put yourself there. You don't have to invent the wheel. Someone's already got a wheel that you can hop right onto. So try to suss out where the communities who are having conversations that you would like to be part of already are. And that might be LinkedIn, that might be Instagram, that might be Twitter, that might be Facebook, that could be, that might be Clubhouse. That might even be TikTok. The fact that you're not 16 doesn't mean it's not TikTok. It could be. Lots of grown-ups.
You never know. Have you tried Clubhouse yet? I've got an invite I need to accept.
I don't love audio only, generally speaking, which is weird. I don't hate the sound of my voice or anything. I mean, I think I sound fine, but it's just not really my jam. But I'm on Clubhouse. I don't have my notifications on, so I don't get pinged every time someone I know is on Clubhouse because I hang with marketers. They're all on Clubhouse. I'd get pinged all day long. Meanwhile, there's people out there who have never heard of Clubhouse because they're not swamped with people who know Clubhouse. But everyone I know is on Clubhouse. So I would get pinged incessantly. I join when I'm invited by a person who I actually have a relationship with to join a discussion. So far that person has primarily been Madeline Sklar, who is a Twitter expert. She's like the Twitter expert. Madeline Sklar, she runs the Twitter Smarter chat on Thursdays. She has podcasts. She's just the Twitter expert. And so when Madeline Sklar says, will you come like co-lead a Clubhouse room with me to talk about Twitter tips? I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to get value out of that conversation. Because also we share a lot of the same circles. So I already know a lot of the people who are gravitating towards the room. So I'm just kind of in a room with friends, smart friends, because on Clubhouse, when Madeline leads a room, it's not the Madeline show. She's bringing people on to share their own experiences, to share their own thoughts, to ask their own questions. She is passing the microphone. She is sharing that conversation. So I like those rooms. I'm hearing about a lot of rooms where it's, really kind of self-inflated, billionaire bros just kind of hearing themselves talk. And that's not really my kind of room. I'm not listening to their podcasts for a reason. I don't see why listening to them live is going to be much better. But I like, but at the same time, I know people who are loving those. I know people who are saying, I'm getting the opportunity to hear someone speak who would normally cost a really hefty priced conference ticket to get to hear this person speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's what you're into, that's a great opportunity, have to say. But I prefer the not maintained, the well executed, not the right word, it's not coming to me. The well facilitated group discussions. Facilitated group discussions are what I like on Clubhouse. So Madeline's been getting one of those going in cooperation with her Twitter chat. She has her Twitter chat on Thursday midday, and then a few hours later, we get together on Clubhouse. And so it connects. People have suggested that I do the same, but I actually would rather connect mine to my Friday live stream. So like live video is more my thing than audio.
Right.
I'm actually connecting my Twitter chat to my video live stream because that's more my thing. But I'm showing up on Clubhouse when there's a conversation going on that is scheduled, that I know will bring me value, that I want to show up and be a part of.
Well, and I'll tell you, to be honest, that's been kind of my fear. I've had a busy past week and a half of stuff, so I haven't had the time where I'm like, I can sit down. So if I get sucked into it, that I'm not, letting things go that need to be taken care of. And so, but Katia, the lady I was telling you about before, has been on it. And she's getting a lot of Instagram followers because it's connected with Instagram, for those that don't know. I
am getting connections.
Yeah. And so she's noticing that uptick in her connections. So I'm looking forward to it, and probably maybe towards the end of this week, because I'm in the middle of a couple projects right now. So I'm just kind of like, but to get out there and to connect with people. And I think
what I've been doing is when I'm in those groups, when I'm in that room, with Madeline, I take a screenshot of everyone who's in there. And I go and I follow them on Twitter if their Twitter handle is in their bio, and I add them on LinkedIn. I write them a LinkedIn invitation saying, hey, great to see you in Madeline's Clubhouse room today. Let's connect here too and keep in touch. So I've grown my network that way using Clubhouse.
Yes, and she just gave you a great tip. And that's the whole thing that you, especially Joey, because I know you're working on this. Social media is all about connections. It doesn't matter what platform you're on, it's all about connections and making real connections with people, not just, hey, I'm connecting with you so you can buy my book.
Yeah. It can't be transactional. A relationship cannot be transactional. It needs to be mutually beneficial. It needs to be ongoing. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, love that. Marathon, not a sprint. If I could talk. Well, what words of advice or encouragement do you have for the writers creating their personal brand? You've given some excellent tips. So what's one last little thing that you can help people with?
One big thing that I encounter is that people don't think they're as interesting as they are. We all know people who go too far the opposite way. They think they're the best thing since sliced bread, but that's not who I'm talking to right now. And that's not who needs my help, quite honestly. A lot of people think like, I mean, I'm just me. You know, they're like, I'm not particularly interesting. I'm not particularly colorful. I don't have a backstory. You know, I'm not even that weird. Like, I'm just me. I don't want to be center stage because who wants to hear about me? My book is good. I can write. I can invent interesting people. I'm just not that interesting. And that's not true, first of all. You are that interesting. Everyone has some interesting stuff about them. If you're stuck, talk to the people in your life. Find out from the people in your life things that, how would they describe you? You know, if they see something and they think of you, like what sorts of things would those be? Because other people, I actually did a whole workshop with, I work with a lot of realtors, and I did a workshop with a whole room full of realtors who were all friendly. It was a small firm, and so they tend to be pretty friendly. And I was going around one by one, and, you know, I'd say to someone, I was like, what's your thing? And they're like, well, I can help people with anything. You know, I was like, no, but what's your thing? And someone else would be like, what are you talking about? You and your husband flip old houses on the weekends. So they're like, oh yeah. And it's like, people who are looking to renovate houses need to find you. What do you mean you don't know your thing? You know, like, so sometimes other people see us.
Yeah, I think sometimes when something comes so easy to us like that, we're like, what?
I think it's not difficult.
Can't everybody do that? And it's like, no, they can't.
Happens to me constantly. Keep in mind that literally what I sell to people, the product that I sell, is guidance. So I get imposter syndrome all the time. I'm like, yeah, but I just give them ideas. I just give them thoughts. I'm like, yes, and you have gone through a lot of training, and you study this stuff, and you do this stuff, and you have expertise that they don't. And I'm like, but they could just Google that. And I'm like, no, first of all, they can't Google and get all of that information. And second of all, they don't know what to look. No, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in this isn't special. But it is. You have stuff to offer. Ask other people if you have trouble getting out of your own head. But you do have something special to offer. And people also really say, I want the work to speak for itself. I don't want to be a part of this. Yeah, but you're doing the work a disservice.
Right.
You need to consider it in service of the work. Because you can be like, hey, here, so that then they look when you shine a big shiny flashlight on your work. You know?
Right. So I think of Amy Porterfield, because when I first started this, is she your love?
Obsessed.
Yes. How you not love Amy? I mean, and that's the thing. Because I love Amy so much, I love how she teaches, and I can soak up everything that she says and listen to her for hours, because she is real and genuine and kind, and she truly wants to help people.
She wants us all to be millionaires. Like, she legit wants us to be millionaires.
Yeah. And I love that about her. And that's what you need to do, is where are you giving value that other people can't do? And I mean, I've had people ask me that aren't in the writing world, well, are there that many people that really want to write a book? Because I'm a writing coach. I'm like, yeah, there are. And there's a lot of people teaching it too, but that's not going to stop me, because it's, like you said, it's my thing. I love it.
To offer.
Yeah, I love it. I have a process that I teach that nobody else is teaching. And I love what I do. I love helping people, and my clients, are extremely happy. Sylvia, who I don't know if she's still in here because this is her daughter's ballet time. So she may or may not still be here, is like one of my biggest fans right now,
Aww.
And that's the thing. Once somebody works with me, they're like, they come back and they're like, oh, and she's actually a referral from one of my first clients that I worked with like 3 years ago. And they're really good friends. And so when she started working with me, she's like, oh, I love it. And I'm saying this not to brag. I'm saying this so people understand this too. Like, I met with a person the first time this past week, and he wants some editing help. And we got done, and he's like, can you handle a compliment? And I'm like, sure. Like,
let's try.
Let me try that. This. And he's like, I can tell you're the real deal. Like, you're really out to help people. And that meant a lot to me that he said it, because that's what I want people to feel when they're working with me. And that's the thing. How do you make people feel when they're working with you or you're giving them value? I mean, that's just like we're talking about Amy. Amy makes you feel like you can just shoot to the moon and back in a heartbeat.
I went to her Entrepreneurs Experience event in San Diego in 2019. And
I wish I could have gone.
It was so powerful. It was ridiculous. And at the very beginning, I won't go too into depth. I know we have just a couple minutes, but she had us do a few visualization exercises. And I literally cried. Just because there was so much that I just didn't realize in certain ways that I'd been holding myself back, and I left them in that room. And then she dared us to think bigger about something, and I was like, well, I mean, I don't want much. I just want, and then this much bigger, audacious dream that I hadn't even dared to think of popped fully formed into my head. I was like, I had no idea that was in there. Because she brings that out of people, and it's great, and it lasts.
Right. When you're inspired like that, it gives you that energy to keep going and having that focus. And this isn't an Amy Fest, but we're going to give one more Amy story here. I actually worked with one of her neighbors. She was a neighbor of hers before she moved to her big house out in California. Mm-hmm. And so this was before she made it big. And she said she's the same as she was then, as far as being genuine.
So great. She just moved, by the way. I think she's in Nashville now.
Oh, yeah. I heard they were moving to Nashville, which I love Nashville. But you're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Amy Porterfield is her name, Joey. And if you're doing anything in the online space, she has the things about email list building courses. She has a podcast, which is always got full of great value. And so, yes, I'm giving the Amy, I might need to send her a link to this. Hey,
Amy, royalties, please.
We plugged her like for about 20 minutes here.
Girls, but here's the thing. You want people to talk about you that way, right? I mean, wouldn't it be amazing? I know that sometimes I've gotten tagged a few times lately where people have been like, hey, I just talked about Christine Gritmon on a podcast I was on. I'm like, you did? That's amazing. Of course I'm going to share that, right?
Exactly.
Keep the love going.
And that's it. The more you give, and you can overgive, but it's still going to come back to you truthful. I feel like even if you overgive, you're going to reap that benefit, because
it may not come from the same source. The universe works in mysterious ways, but that good energy will come back to you. Somebody will notice.
Right. Because either they'll remember, and somebody will say, "Hey, I want to write a book." Oh, I watched this Right Coach girl, and she helped me with this. You ought to try her, see if she can help you. That's how it works. I mean, and I have people that I talk to now, and it took, like, Adrian's one of my clients from last year. I had talked to him for 3 or 4 years before he actually became a client, because he was just in a different place. And then when he was finally ready, he was like, "Hey, all right, let's go." So you've got to keep this in mind. It's a long game. It is not a short game. It's, it's going to take time. And I've been, like I said, doing this 5 years now. And I feel like I am on this cusp of like really growing this year and going to a new level for myself. But it's taken 5 years to get there and kind of tweak things. I've been tweaking things all along. And then even last year, I tweaked some more at the end of the year because I realized some things. And that's part of why I'm doing live stream now for podcasts, because I'm like, I don't have the time to sit and fool with editing a podcast. And I don't want to. And so but I'm still putting it out on my website, but it's very easy now because when we're done, this goes to YouTube and I've got that link out there on that page and it automatically shows up. I'm done. It's one and done.
Yeah.
I do not have to keep playing with it.
That's how you're able to show up consistently, though. You've made it as easy as possible for yourself.
Right. Exactly. You create a framework and keep tweaking it till it's like you want it. And it's one of those things, you'll tweak it till the end of time just because things evolve and change and life happens and you just go different directions and whatever. But I'm still doing the same thing in the same space, just in a different way. So does anybody else have any questions before we go? And Joey, thank you. You're welcome, Joey. She said, thank you kindly. You ladies are amazing. You share authentically and value the help you give us. Yes.
We try.
Yeah, so you're welcome so much. I love it. Joey shows up a lot on these and I appreciate it. She always has great questions. And so we're glad to help you. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you would like to subscribe to the channel and hit the little notification bell, because then it will notify you when I go live and you don't have to think about it. Yeah, it's down there somewhere. And get that. And we would love to see you on YouTube, or if you're in the Facebook group, let us know if this has helped you. And if you want to join the Facebook group, so say you're on YouTube, the Facebook group is Write My Book. So really easy. And I think I'm usually one of the first ones to pop up. So there's a typewriter in the icon. So you should be able to find me pretty quickly and easily. But we appreciate everybody being here. And thank you, Christine, for sharing your wonderful story and helping us create a personal brand. And this is one of those I know that I'm going to go back and listen to again, because there's some good things in there that I know there's always tweaking I need to do with my branding as well. And so I appreciate you being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Everybody have a great day. If you have any questions, just leave them and we will catch up with you later. Take care.
Bye.